Nuestro mundo hipercambiante demanda profesionales capacitados. ¿Estás preparado para impulsar tu carrera profesional? Encarar la corrupción requerirá la adopción de un mecanismo integral de prevención desde diversos frentes para generar un ambiente organizacional próspero y eficaz. Bienvenido a la iniciativa Días de Inspiración. Seis en Punto con Gustavo Martinez Mancera. Emisiones semanales, conductores expertos, transmisiones en vivo en nuestras redes sociales, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram y Spotify. Invitados internacionales cada semana. ¿Estás preparado para un nuevo desafío?
Hello and welcome to this broadcast, 6 o'clock. My name is Gustavo Martinez. It is a great pleasure for me to greet you on behalf of the International Institute of Business Ethics and Compliance. I welcome you and I want to share our appreciation to our members, partners, and collaborators in Iberoamerica to take this space a reality. I would like to thank you to our sponsors as well, Audit, the Global Audit and Internal Control Network, and the Fraud Explorer, the tool for fraud prevention and detection with artificial intelligence. In this transmission, we will talk about the attributes of effectiveness, the internal audit and compliance functions, a binomial that increases value, with a great colleague and friend with a vast international experience, Mr. Hossam El Shaffei from Jordan. Welcome, Hossam.
Thank you very much, Gustavo. Thank you. Muchas gracias para invitarme.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that you join us in this broadcast that is going to be shared in English, just to try to make more easy the talk with you and with all the audience, definitely. So before to start to talk about this really important and relevant issue or item that we are going to be sharing with you, I would like to share a brief summary of the professional experience that Hossam El Shaffei has. I want to tell you that Hossam is a global thought leader, consultant, and advisor to business of the topics of fraud, agile internal audit, compliance, enterprise risk management, governance, internal controls, shared service delivery, and strategies for process transformation as well. El Shaffei is a passionate fraud fighter and speaking of a variety of topics related to fraud prevention and deterrence, investigation, audit, compliance, risk, governance, obviously internal controls as well. And he is an ACFE, authorized CFE exam review course instructor. Hossam El Shaffei has over 30 years work experience in multinational organizations such as the United Nations, the USAID, RSM partner, leading the risk advisory services and assisting other organizations regionally and internationally as well. He has global regional work experience and has provided many management government boards with advice for better governance, agile internal auditing, risk management controls, fraud prevention and detection as well, quality, transparency, and on fighting corruption programs. Just a brief summary of Mr. El Shaffei. I want to share with you also that El Shaffei is an active promoting and developing of these oversight profession activities. He is the founder and managing director of Oversight Consulting and Training, that definitely we are going to be sharing with you the contact information of Mr. El Shaffei. And he served in the FIFA Reform Task Force Committee as well. He is a trustee board of trustees and internal audit foundation of the chairperson of the academic found board subcommittee at the Global Institute of the Internal Auditors. He is the former chairperson of Chair Emeritus of the Board Higher Education Committee as the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. Thank you very much. And once again, I'm welcome you, Hossam, to share with all the audience that we have in Iberoamerica and in different countries globally, to share this important and with really great relevance subject that we are going to be discussing in this broadcast about the attributes of effectiveness of internal audit and the compliance functions in the organizations. So with this mention, I would like to greeting you as well and start probably with the main questions. What are the functions for internal audit and compliance in the organizations, and what could be the main differences between these functions?
Excuse me. Thank you so much, Gustavo, first of all, for inviting me. And thank you to all your members and audience for being with us today. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you and with them today. And hopefully, as we discussed before, that should not be the first and last, but we're looking into being partners in so many fronts. And as you mentioned, the subject of internal audit and compliance are very important, and there are a lot of misperceptions out there because compliance function came recently into the picture, which was not there before. The audit function or the internal audit function was, as a matter of fact, performing audit. And at that time, we classified as compliance audit, which is ensuring that the organization management complies with the policies and procedures. And that's why at that time, we didn't see much value added by the internal auditors, because in most of the cases in our continents, regions, and the world, especially in countries and regions where developing, as they call them, the management and the organizations did not pay attention to updating their policies and procedures on a regular basis, on a consistent basis, to reflect the actual the actual need for that policies and procedures at the time. So most probably in many places, you would see the employee performing something that is not in the policy, or the policy is too old for that, and things have changed and updated, but not reflected in the policies and procedure. So being compliance auditor, a lot of auditors would say that go and audit the function, and then it says it's not in compliance with the policies and procedures, either because the policies and procedures are too old, all right, or that person is not doing something new to stay up to date with the requirements of the business. Therefore, the internal audit and the governance, code of governance, have changed in the countries and required that compliance function to be separate from what the auditors are doing, on the basis that the auditors will be auditing processes, controls, to ensure that that compliance on the basis of risk-based auditing, not 100% auditing or the compliance audit. As a matter of fact, compliance function is a client for internal auditing. It's the auditors need to audit the compliance function, processes, and controls to provide assurance that the compliance function is performing efficiently and effectively. Having said that, there is a very important point that we need to build a bridge between compliance and audit, to exchange information all the time, not only with compliance, with risk management, with internal controls, auditors cannot work in silos, and compliance, risk management cannot work in silos. Although compliance, internal control, risk management is a management function, reports directly to management. Internal audit reports directly to the audit committee and internal audit, the board, the internal audit committee, right? For the independence part, that does not mean that they don't communicate. There is no mechanism to make them sit together regularly to discuss the changes in the risks and in the controls and what is facing the organization for collectively make sure that they address it in their work. As a matter of fact, for an audit to start, an auditor, I would, as an auditor, start with talking to risk management, what are the risks are, and what the controls in place. And I talk to compliance to see if they have any issues or in any area that needs me as an auditor to look into in more depth and provide them with feedback on it. So, so this is why compliance and internal audit separated and became separate functions, and the requirements for each one of them has changed. Here is compliance. I want to make sure that the organization is in compliance with all the regulatory requirements and all the internal policies and internal requirements and external requirements. The internal audit is to provide assurance that this is done and done effectively and efficiently. Having said that, also, I want to bring another point. I'm sorry, I'm jumping into many things, but but there also a misperception in the implementation and compliance, in the implementation of risk management, in the implementation of internal controls, because employees should understand that the whole world now works on a risk-based. If you take even anti-money laundering, when you go to a bank, they want to survey your whole history, all right? While no one will commit money laundering with a bank that you have been with for 20 years and you use your personal account that you have been used. So people just apply without thinking, without understanding the principles and the concepts behind it. Be a risk focused and future forward. That's important.
Yeah,
I stop
definitely.
here and then we'll continue.
Yeah, definitely, Hossam. And actually, I appreciate that. And before to continue, I want to appreciate and invite you for all our audience to share with us all the questions, comments that you probably has. And this show is going to be recorded. And kindly, Mr. El Shaffei accept and actually suggest us that all the questions that you share with us in all our social network, we are going to be replying to you directly, probably in the next hours, that we have a chance to take a look of your questions as well, to try to increase this collaborative and friendly talk that we have during this broadcast with Mr. El Shaffei. Thank you very much. Just to make a brief summary, we are talking during this broadcast about the attributes of effectiveness in internal audit and compliance functions as a binomial that increase value to the organizations. While the compliance functions, as you mentioned, Hossam, is designed to assure that your organization is compliant with all those requirements, the internal audit function is meant to monitor and evaluate your company's internal control environment and examine this adequacy, efficiency, and effectiveness. The traditional approach to governance, risk, and compliance relies on working in silos as you mentioned. However, this and using a separate point solution to address each assurance group requirements. So that you mentioned, that is not an independent function that work in a collaborative manner directly in the organization. So I think that is a very important item that we should make a remarkable to all our friends and colleagues that follow this broadcast. This creates a fragmented approach, working silos, that leads to inefficiencies, added cost, and inability to maintain compliance initiatives and make informed and accurate decisions to the board mainly. So the other probably question that we can discuss, Hossam, is should compliance and internal audit be a combined function?
That's a great question. they, you know, I'll put the question in different words. We just divorced them from each other. Should we get them be married again? You see, the internal audit standards speaks about internal auditors being internal auditors and should not accept any other responsibilities that would deliver a confusing message to their clients or to the rest of the organization. So, for example, should internal auditors also do investigations when a case comes to investigate? My immediate question is no. The organization should have a separate investigators, because for internal audit, the standards requires the internal auditors to add value to the organization, to sit on the table with management, because internal auditors right now have two functions to offer to their organization: assurance and consulting. All right. So if you are investigating at the same time, nobody will ask you for consulting because nobody wants to give you their secrets. And we have this week, and what do you want to? So you want gain trust. You want to be the trusted advisor to your management. How do you do that? By not scaring them like the old days. Auditors were the police officer. When employees used to see the auditors coming, they would hide, they would organize the papers because the auditors are coming, and and so on. No, right now you're a partner without crossing the lines of independence and objectivity. All right, so you need to offer consulting at the time when your advice, your expertise is needed. Because think of this: internal auditors are the very few people in the organizations that they know about the whole thing about the organization, because they audit every function. So they learn about all the functions. All right. This is make them unique and put them in a right situation to be able to have a seat at the table to provide advice when needed to top management, and as a matter of fact to the board as well. All right. So combining the two together will make the thinking and the perception whether internal audits work for management or not, or work independently for the board of directors. So therefore, when you see internal audit in performing a management function, then you will get the mixed idea about what internal auditors do. And our standards as per the Institute of Internal Auditor, Global Institute of Internal Audit, refrain us from performing management responsibility or management operation. And if we do, we may stay refrain for a 12 months, 1 year or so from auditing this function during that period. So my answer is no, because internal auditors have moved out from compliance audit to risk-based auditing, and compliance right now has been required by the regulators, and what they do is good to protect the organization and management from being embarrassed with the regulators or with the external auditors. Therefore, our job as auditors to provide assurance that this function is, yes, performing efficiently and effectively in their functions, with regular communication with them on what are the issues in compliance and what are the issues in risk management and internal controls, as the case may be.
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate your answer, and I'm totally agree. And before to continue, I would like to invite to our audience to know more about this international initiative for the International Institute of Corporate Ethics and Compliance. That we are in these sessions, that is a part of this international initiative, Days of Inspirations. We are currently in the fourth season in 2022 with this broadcast that you can follow on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and LinkedIn Live, and also in your platform for podcasts prefer through Twitter, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts as well. Saying that, as you mentioned, I would like to continue. And you mentioned a couple of points, and actually, I think that is a key points over there. How to optimize the collaboration between internal audit and compliance. And we already know that these two functions need to be independent as we follow different objectives. However, I will appreciate to have your comments about how to optimize this collaboration between internal audit and compliance functions.
Well, very important question, very important point, because they are not in most of the cases. All right. So how do we get that? I say we start from the top. Okay. People talk about boards. When you appoint or elect board members, make sure that your board composition is balanced, that you have the right expertise in the board, and the not only the right expertise, but the board members are independent as well, so they can express their opinion freely with no fears from being fired from the board or sacked from the board, because right now board members are paid. All right, so it's an income for them, so they would like to stay on the board, right?
Yeah.
So which is, it has its pluses and minuses, right? But what I want to say is that the board sets the tone of the collaboration, because us as professionals are used to work in silos. This is my my territory. Nobody comes in. I'm protecting.
Yeah,
my
I'm the
people.
owner of this information,
I'm the
the
owner of
operations.
this.
Yeah.
Because if people come in and know more than they should in my area, I may lose my job. So there is also a job insecurity in there. and the limitation of availability of good jobs or whatever makes you also more protective to your to the information and to your position, and even managers do not share enough information with their own employees, so they don't grow and look like they're better than their managers. So that we need to get out of that. The whole world has changed, especially after the pandemic, and everything, all the knowledge now are available on the net, on the internet. So anybody can learn and anybody can get any piece of information. So the board and the subcommittees from the board should always consistently encourage reporting mechanism that is available for everybody. Communication platform is available for everybody. The audit committee can bring the auditor, the compliance, the risk management, and the internal control and sit together and discuss matters that related to the organization. Regular reporting that has input from auditors, from compliance, from risk management, from internal control. Right now, we have a lot of softwares that can make this data available to everybody by a click of a button. Internal auditor goes in, find out what the compliance status is and where the weaknesses are and so on, what the risks that been identified and what the control mitigation metrics for all the risks, and the same thing for the internal controls. So right now, the pandemic and the before pandemic, organizations used to be very strict about spending money on automation and softwares and digitalization and so on. Right now, if we don't move forward and we have that forward focus, we're going to stay behind. You're going to stay in silos. You're going to stay with no communication. Right now, many of the large companies and the small companies have given the choice to their employees to work from home. How can have you changed your policies to cover the work from home situation? A lot of companies did it, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Unfortunately, like I'll give you a simple example, all right? And I keep repeating that. Most of companies prohibit drinking, for an example, alcohol in the office. All right, while I'm working from home, I can have a good time, right?
It's not the company installations, but definitely if you are performing a job directly for them, is prohibited or is permitted. And I think according with the different laws that we have, you are in your house, in your home, so probably you are free to do that.
But I'm during working hours.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, you can look at it from all different directions. So the pandemic has changed a lot of norms. So we have to take that into consideration. If we continue to be in silos between audit, compliance, and other assurance functions, that company will be diminished, suffered, may run out of business.
Yeah.
Everybody need to be on the same platform to communicate and have access to the same information at any time from anywhere. And that's a board responsibility and a senior management responsibility to ensure that everyone has the tool to do that. I thank you for introducing some of your partners which Audit tool, or excuse me if I'm mispronouncing the names of the companies and so on, they may have the right softwares for these assurance functions to be on constant communication, information, to stay informed, efficient, and effective in their performance.
Definitely. Also, here, the internal audits and compliance are, we understand, are separate functions. It's clear that they share many common connection points, as you mentioned. To ensure this an effective and this coordination of activities between these two functions is optimal, as you mentioned as well, that these assurance groups leverage a common language of risk and control, common methodologies, and leverage a common technology solution, as you mentioned as well. This comprehensive assessment of risk and controls require the use of standard risk and control taxonomy that probably we can just search in the different organizations with people with experience in the implementation and adoption of this kind of methodologies and different functions in the companies. I think, and I'm agree with you also, that the company who has this in mind or identify and try to reflect that in their internal policies, procedures, the controls, the key controls, even the reports, definitely they are going to have a mountain of benefits and great value added to the main activities that the company has or performed directly and impact directly as well with employees, the customers, the vendors, all the shareholders as well. So I think that the benefit reflects in the entire society, definitely.
I totally agree.
I would like to talk, and actually, it's a shame that we don't have more time during this broadcast. However, I'm going to invite you to discuss probably in a discussion table with another different colleagues in another areas around the globe. That is going to be great. If we can talk a little bit about these activities and how it's related, and we can identify in the three functions or activities that are the shield of operations in the organizations. I'm talking, I'm referring directly in the three lines of defense. So we have been discussing this, Hossam, early. So I think that is a main point that definitely we need to share with our colleagues and friends in this space provide for the International Institute of Ethics and Compliance. So I will appreciate if you can share with us a little bit briefly what is your impression about these activities in the three lines of defense in the organizations?
Well, that's a very important question, and very important. The three-line model separates the responsibilities, or not separates, as a matter of fact, clarifies, define the responsibilities and accountability of each category of the module. So therefore, since we're talking about compliance and internal auditing, compliance comes in the second line, and the second category of the module, which is, again, mostly assurance functions, which is compliance is one of them. Maybe internal control, if there is an internal control department, is another function in there. And the third line, or the third category, would include the internal audit, the external audit, the let's say the Mexico Bureau of Auditors, or so, the regulators that come and maybe perform auditing on the organizations or the functions. Therefore, second in line is management. First and second are management functions, and the third is totally independent. Although internal audits still reports, but per the standards of internal audit, reports directly to the head of the organization administratively, they call it, and to the board functionally. So if you want a salary increase for one of your employees, you talk to the head of the organization. If you want to take a day off or you go on holidays, you talk to the head of the organization. You come early, you leave late. You come late, you leave early, and so on and so forth. That's something that administratively you report to the organization. Functionally, you report directly to the board, internal audit committee, especially the chief audit executive. The recruitment and the release of the chief audit executive should be by the internal audit. Management can suggest or be part of the recruitment process, but the decision and the approval is made by the board and the internal audit committee and the board. The salary, setting the salary of the chief audit executive is by the board. Compliance is by management. The reporting, I mean, management, head of organization cannot dismiss the chief audit executive, the head of audit, independently without going back to board and making a strong justification for doing that. So that's why the 3 lines came into the picture to define their roles and responsibility in each category and who is responsible for what. And now after being modified and adjusted to be called the 3-line model, is encourage the communication and the coordination and the collaboration. Here's by all the different words, they mean the same, of those lines and the different functions, namely the compliance and audit.
That's great. That's great. And actually, I think that the professionals that we are helping to the organizations to make the implementation or adoption about this function to increase the ethics behavior and the integrity behavior internally and externally in the organizations need to understand what are the key points to increase the collaboration between the internal audit function mainly and with the other activities that we perform among the other activities in the organization. I think that is vital. So just getting in the final line of this broadcast, I would appreciate if you can share us a recommendation, a final thought that you can share with all the audience that we have for the International Institute of Corporate Ethics and Compliance in this space.
All right. I mean, in the recommendations that I always share, and in particular in this one in particular, is that make sure that your board members' knowledge are balanced. Get the right board members on the board. So if you want increased collaboration between compliance and audit, get someone who has experience in audit, in compliance, in risk management, in governance, in controls, that need to understand. I mean, the board need to get an orientation to understand the different function. Otherwise, a board cannot operate without understanding the requirements for each function, the standards of operation for each function. So make sure that you select the right and balanced board members. If you do that, I'm sure the ethical culture will be different, all right, will be good, because that will, they will enforce the tone at the top to create an ethical culture. The other thing is that they will reinforce the communication between the different functions and the collaboration between the different functions, because auditors cannot work alone in silos. All right, auditors are not anymore the old auditors that they close their doors, their documentation are confidential and nobody can take a look at. All right, encourage the collaboration between external auditors and internal auditors, compliance, risk management, controls, lawyers. Auditors need to communicate with lawyers at the beginning of each assignment to understand if there are any allegations in this area. All right, because that's one of the risks. But an auditors unfortunately don't know it all. So you need to get information from other people who know. So don't play the smart guy or smart gal that you know everything. I'm sorry, don't play it low and learn from others, communicate with others, work collaboratively, and sorry, and then you will be all in good shape.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, Hossam. Thank you very much. Just to talk a little bit about the activities that you are performing, I would like to share to all our friends and also to you, Hossam, to talk a little bit about the activities that you are performing. And actually, we are going to share the contact information and the webpage that all our friends and colleagues can follow. And actually, I'm going to appreciate if you can tell a little bit more about the activities that you are performing directly or among exactly with the DCRO, the Risk Governance Institute that we are saying the webpage right now.
Yes. Well, maybe I'll do a small presentation of it, but also maybe obviously we're looking forward to work together and have a collaboration as well. So hopefully this is a new qualifications that can be offered to all members of the institute through the institute, and it is a qualification in risk directors. The graduate of this program becomes a qualified risk director. We're trying to prepare people, current board members or potential board members, to understand more about taking the risk instead of avoiding the risk.
Yeah.
So we have here world-class presenters and educators that teaches. The qualification consists of 14 modules, and each module is taught by one of the world-class leaders in risk management. And so after you finish the 14 manuals, for the 14 modules, you will go through another assessment, those are the leaders in this qualifications that teach the qualifications, and those also have written the contents of the qualifications. So therefore, it is very prestigious qualification. Prepare you for your next board membership, directorship, and or if you are already a board member, will bring some lot of knowledge to you about risks in different areas and how you can take the risk instead of avoiding the risks, and in most of the cases turning the risk into an opportunity rather than avoiding it totally. So, and there are other courses during that institute also that skill enhancing skills in risk management and so on. So that's a brief introduction to this. We can send you a video that you can share with the members to explain it more. A video by the president and CEO of the institute, giving the introduction about all the education offered through the institute. The qualification can be totally online, or can be also have certain classes in person or virtually that we go through. We give the delegates case studies of a world crisis, world known companies that failed because they were not able to adapt quickly and take the risks. And then we sit around the table as board directors and discuss where the failure came from, what should have happened, and what are the recommendations that you would have given as a board member, savvy and knowledgeable about how to deal with risks, recommendations to that company to that could have saved the situation. So there is that offered, as well as all online education. It's an e-learning, so you can go through all the module, listen to the presenter, read the supporting materials, solve problems and questions, solve problems and questions. If you don't pass them, you don't move to the next level. So you repeat the whole module again until you learn, so you're able to answer questions, and then you move forward to the next level. And then there is a final assessment at the end of the day, at the end of the course, by the CEO and the president of the institute before you're awarded the qualification.
Excellent, that's great. Just to mention a brief, directly for all our friends and colleagues, we are in the next year, in the next weeks, we are exploring this opportunity. Yeah, in the next weeks, we are going to be sharing with all of you a collaboration agreement with different institutions, including the DCRO Institute, to have this offer also for all our colleagues and friends in Iberoamerica as well. So be in contact, and I appreciate your attention and your questions that we are going to be answered briefly in the next days, definitely for all the activities and obviously, Hossam is going to share these answers and comments for all your questions. Thank you very much. And Hossam, thank you. And for all our friends in that area of the world that we are just writing together, is kind of amazing to be connected with all of you. And hopefully we can meet in the next days and weeks in other broadcasts of this program, 6 o'clock, of the International Institute of Corporate Ethics and Compliance. Thank you all, and thank you, Hossam.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I look forward for more. Thank you.
Goodbye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.